Nuclear weapons.
Nuclear. It's pronounced nuclear.
Became a reality on July 16, 1945, when the Manhattan Project successfully tested an atomic bomb for the first time in the deserts of New Mexico, in what is now called the White Sands Missile Range. This first breakthrough detonation utilized a plutonium implosion design fission bomb, and the event was known as the Trinity Test.
My name is Trinity.
The Trinity?
The Trinity Test explosion produced a fireball that created a crater 300 feet wide, about 91 meters, and 5 feet deep. Within this zone, temperatures were high enough to vaporize the steel tower on which the device was mounted. The area within a radius of approximately 1 mile, about 1.6 kilometers, from ground zero experienced total destruction, including the complete obliteration of structures and significant thermal damage. Even people and buildings as far as 10 miles away, or 16 kilometers, experienced significant damage. Window glass was shattered as far as 100 miles away, or 160 kilometers.
That's gonna need more than a fresh coat of frosting.
The mushroom cloud, which has become the iconic symbol of nuclear detonations, reached 7.5 miles in height. Nuclear detonations create fallout, contaminated dust and other particles dispersed by the bomb, that is capable of sickening and killing slowly every living creature. In the case of the Trinity Test, everything within a 12-mile or 19-kilometer radius got the strongest debris, while the particles carried by wind were estimated to affect regions up to 150 miles away, or 241 kilometers. And, of course, as the power of the bomb is increased, these radii grow wider.
These unfortunate people here will be instantly killed. This circle, which I am sad to say we are in, will experience a slower, considerably more painful death.
Good Lord!
The first nuclear bomb used in open warfare, nicknamed Little Boy, was dropped on Hiroshima, Japan on August 6, 1945. 3 days later, on August 9th, a second nuke, designated as Fat Man, was dropped on Nagasaki. Fat Man was similar to the Trinity Test device, as it was an implosion device.
He's like a fat man.
It's not commonly known, but a third nuke was being prepared in case Japan didn't surrender. This one was going to be called the second Fat Man, or Third Shot.
It seemed excessive, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen.
A nuclear warhead was the most destructive weapon that mankind had yet come up with, and the only things that can top nuclear weapons in terms of sheer destructive power come from the imagination of science fiction writers.
They just launched something at the planet!
Today, UsBot will show you what has happened with the nuclear arms race since 1945. In total, the existence and continued development of nuclear armaments since World War II has now spanned 79 years. So far, the world has been able to avoid seeing further use of nukes in open warfare, but there has been plenty of testing. There have been approximately 2,000 nuclear tests conducted globally. The US has done over 1,000. The Soviet Union did about 715, with the Tsar Bomba being the most powerful nuclear explosion ever, with a yield of 50 megatons. For clarity, just know that the yield of Little Boy and Fat Man were only 15 and 21 kilotons. The Soviets were not playing around. The blast radius of Tsar Bomba included a 2.2-mile fireball zone, 3.5 kilometers, and a total destruction radius of 22 miles, or 35 kilometers.
Whoa. That's a lot of fire, isn't it?
Other nuclear powers account for the remainder. These include the UK, France, China, India, Pakistan, and North Korea. Most nations ceased testing nukes in the 1990s. Who was the only one that didn't stop? North Korea. They continued right up until 2017, making them the only country to test nuclear weapons in the 21st century.
Well, that's just perfect.
Where do things stand now? Which nations possess nuclear arms? And how many does each have? We'll tell you, but first we're going to blow your mind with some ideas about nukes that you probably haven't considered before.
Yeah, come on!
I know. You want to know now just how bad the current world stage is. But, like Monty Python said,
"This is supposed to be a happy occasion. Let's not bicker and argue about who killed who."
trust me, this is interesting stuff. If you've never heard these ideas before, prepare to have your mind blown as wide open as a nuclear testing site.
Oh no, he didn't.
Oh yes, he did!
Why do you gotta be so insensitive all the time?
I'm a very insensitive man. Stop your job, look at the insensitive man. That's what they're paying you for.
Come on, guys. We're facing the end of the world like every day. The least we can do is give ourselves a little break and get some laughs in wherever we can. Now I know everyone here today has a morbid curiosity about which countries currently have nukes, and you have been very patient. So, without further ado, here are the numbers, courtesy of FAS.org or the Federation of American Scientists. As of 2024, first, Russia, 5,580. Second, United States, 5,044. Third, China, 500. Fourth, France, 290. Fifth, United Kingdom, 225. Sixth, India, 172. Seventh, Pakistan, 170. Eighth, Israel, 90. Ninth, North Korea, 50. Now you know the current status of nuclear arsenals worldwide. In total, there are 12,121 nuclear warheads. Over 9,500 are in military stockpiles, while the rest are retired but awaiting dismantlement.
I'm now at threat. Each of you will clear out his nuclear closet immediately.
Some of you may already be aware, and others will be shocked to learn, that there has been interference with nuclear silos and warheads by UFOs over the years. This is true, and can be verified by clicking on the links in the video description. Apparently, what most of the events have in common is the deactivation of warheads. It seems someone, or various someones, are interested in keeping humanity from blowing itself to smithereens. For example, Malmstrom Air Force Base, Montana. On March 24, 1967, at Malmstrom Air Force Base, 10 Minutemen ICBMs became inoperative while guards reported seeing a glowing red object hovering above the facility. Former Air Force Captain Robert Salas, who was on duty during the incident, has publicly discussed this event, stating that the missiles were disabled during the UFO sighting.
I see this glowing red object. They were flying very fast across the skies. All 10 of their missiles went down while a UFO was overhead. All 10 of our missiles went down. The UFO was immediately over our facility.
Vandenberg Air Force Base, California. Former Air Force Lieutenant Robert Jacobs reported that during a missile test at Vandenberg Air Force Base in 1964, a UFO was captured on film shooting a beam of light at the test missile, causing it to malfunction. Jacobs stated that the incident was filmed and that the footage was subsequently classified.
Now, what we didn't know is what else we had got besides the missile. You have to imagine this thing is flying along at several thousand miles an hour. This stuff is flying along, and something comes into the frame and chasing it, and comes in like this and fires at it, and goes around like this and fires at it, and goes around like this and fires at it, and fires at it like this, and then goes back out that way. What the hell could do that? It looks to me like we got a UFO.
Soviet Union incident. In 1982, at a Soviet missile base near Yusovo, Ukraine, a group of nuclear missiles apparently became activated while a UFO, 3,000 feet in diameter, hovered above the facility. The missiles entered launch mode without any command, causing panic among the personnel. But the launch sequence was aborted, and not by the military personnel, after 30 seconds. It seems that in this case, the ETs demonstrated that they can completely take away our nuclear capabilities if they so choose. These are just some of the incidents of outside interference with world powers and their nuclear stockpiles. This can either be reassuring or unnerving to people, depending on one's point of view. Okay, we've done a lot of background on nuclear weapons and history. Ready to know how it works?
Enough! Do you want my head to explode?
No, certainly not. I'll keep this brief and to the point.
Scoffing is a sound of disbelief.
Okay, I deserve that. So, I'll give you the skinniest of descriptions, and it comes down to the word fission. Fission is the process by which the nucleus of a heavy atom splits into two or more smaller nuclei, along with the release of energy and additional particles, such as neutrons. This release of energy is central to both nuclear power generation and the operation of nuclear weapons. Fission is what they refer to when they are talking about splitting atoms. When you hear the word fusion, that means the opposite. You are combining light nuclei to form a heavier nucleus, which happens to release more energy per reaction than fission does. Strangely, fusion doesn't get as much press. Not as catchy, I guess. That's it. That's as deep as we're going into that.
Oh, phew.
If you want to know more about how we first came to understand and develop nuclear power in the modern era, just let me know in the comments. Have you ever considered the idea, just the possibility, that we aren't the first ones on Earth to have to deal with atomic weapons and the threat they pose to all life?
What are you talking about, child?
Forgive me.
I'm talking about going back in history, way, way back to the earliest days that we can find record of. This would be the age of the Sumerians, whose civilization existed from 4100 BC to about 1750 BC. Most historians consider this to be the earliest example of a nation that dwelled in organized cities, with irrigation and structure and government. What's weird about the Sumerians is that there is no evidence of a gradual progression from being hunter-gatherers to a people capable of building cities and using advanced math and agriculture. Out of nowhere, the Sumerian culture just appeared.
Dwarfs just spring out of holes in the ground. Which is, of course, ridiculous.
If you've never gotten into ancient history and learned all the mysteries and theories about ancient Sumer, you're in for a treat. Get out there and start investigating, because it'll take you on one wild ride. For now, let's do a quick summary. Sumer was not one nation, but a collection of city-states, each governed by its own king. Their Akkadian neighbors called them Sumeru, which means land of the civilized kings. The Sumerians called themselves Kiengir, which translates to land of the lords of brightness, or land of the noble ones. This reflects the Sumerian self-perception as a sophisticated and advanced culture. They certainly didn't seem to have problems with self-esteem.
Pride goeth before destruction. Boy, everyone is stupid except me.
According to Sumerian mythology, a group of large humanoid beings, known as the Anunnaki, came from a dying planet called Nibiru and settled on the Earth. Their purpose was to collect necessary resources in order to help their own people on their home planet. While here, each of the most prominent Anunnaki leaders established their own domains where they ruled as they pleased, while still mining for gold, which was their chief objective. Curiously enough, both the Sumerians and the Babylonians talked about a worldwide flood that destroyed early humanity. As you can imagine, this demonstrates a parallel with the Bible and Noah's flood. According to Sumerian Babylonian accounts, the Anunnaki used their space-traveling vehicles to escape destruction and waited above the earth until the floods receded before coming back down and starting over.
Soon the human race will wither and fall.
Yes, remember that the Anunnaki were considered to be very large people. Interestingly, the Old Testament does tell us that there were giants in the land before and after the flood. If all creatures had died in the flood and only Noah and his family were on the boat, how did the giants make a comeback? Well, now we have a theory.
I call it luck. In my experience, there's no such thing as luck.
Anyway, the point of all this Anunnaki talk is this. The mythology goes that at some point down the line, the Anunnaki leaders start fighting with one another, and it gets so bad they end up going to war. Remember, these are people from an advanced civilization that can travel between worlds. Their technology is highly advanced. During the course of this war, the Anunnaki end up going nuclear and taking each other out. At this point, their group, as a whole, lose their interstellar flight technologies, and things never go back to the way they were.
Well, this sucks.
My theory is that the areas that sustained the most nuclear damage were located in North Africa, which is why we have the Sahara Desert. I don't believe the Sahara Desert was created naturally. In the Bible, there are numerous references to an east wind that blows in from the desert and causes desolation, scorching, the withering of plants, the loss of land and water. Personally, my theory is that the Sahara Desert resulted from nuclear warfare.
Coincidence? I think not!
The second idea I'm going to put into your head has to do with the Ark of the Covenant. And don't worry, this theory won't take as long as the first one.
Oh, thank goodness.
Or am I just clowning around?
It's true. I was class clown. It's joke. Or is.
When the Ark was taken from the Israelites by the Philistines, somewhere around 1100 BC, it was placed in a city called Ashdod. Shortly thereafter, the people of Ashdod suffered from tumors and boils. Realizing that the outbreak happened after acquiring the Ark of the Covenant, they moved the Ark to another Philistine city named Gath.
8, 2, 4, 6. Oh!
It seemed nobody wanted to hold on to the Ark for too long. They kept passing the ball. The men of Gath began to suffer from tumors and boils also, but we are told more specifically that they were afflicted in their secret parts.
Oh my.
Then the Ark was moved to the city Ekron. The Ekronites had already heard about what happened to people who kept the Ark around, and it frightened them. So they got their leaders together and decided to return the Ark of the Covenant to the Israelites so that it would no longer bring death and disease to their people. Kind of reminds you of that Indiana Jones movie, doesn't it? So, one theory here is that there was some kind of radioactive material held inside the Ark of the Covenant, something that the Israelites knew how to manage, but other nations did not. Of course, east winds and radioactive arcs are not yet proven to be religious, scientific, or historical evidence of nuclear activity yet. But hey, if the Mahabharata, the Sumerians, and the Babylonians have accounts that sound an awful lot like nuclear weapons were being deployed anciently, why not the Bible too? Food for thought.
Oh, I don't even know what to yell at you.
And consider one last thing.
Get on with it. Yes, get on with it!
I am, I promise, but consider one last thing before I come back to the present. If you were a person living in ancient times, with no modern vernacular to describe a nuclear catastrophe, what words would you use to describe what you see? They didn't have words like nuclear, or radioactive, or fallout. So, we have to look more closely at how they describe events. Their flesh will rot while they are still standing on their feet. Their eyes will rot in their sockets, and their tongues will rot in their mouths.
Ew, David.
I know, right? Could they have been describing intense heat and radiation from a nuclear blast? Then the Lord rained down burning sulfur on Sodom and Gomorrah, from the Lord out of the heavens. Abraham looked down toward Sodom and Gomorrah, toward all the land of the plain, and he saw dense smoke rising from the land, like smoke from a furnace. Smoke rising like a mushroom cloud, perhaps?
What is that? What? What is what?
It's a giant mushroom.
This next one will give you chills. Check out the language used in the Mahabharata when describing a weapon called the Brahmastra, a single projectile charged with all the power in the universe. It was an unknown weapon, an iron thunderbolt, a gigantic messenger of death which reduced to ashes an entire race. There was neither a counterattack nor a defense that could stop it. The weapon produced an incandescent column of smoke and flame as bright as 10,000 suns that rose in all its splendor. After, corpses were so burned as to be unrecognizable. Their hair and nails fell out, pottery broke without any apparent cause, and the birds turned white. After a few hours, all foodstuffs were infected. Any target hit by the Brahmastra would be utterly destroyed. Land would become barren and lifeless. Rainfall would cease, and infertility in humans and animals would follow for aeons of time. The Destruction of a City, Book 8, Karna Parva.
Oh, I've wasted my life.
Dang, that's a pretty good description of a nuke if I ever heard one. And going back to the Sumerians, for the first time since cities were built and founded, the great agricultural tracts produced no grain, the inundated tracts produced no fish, the irrigated orchards produced neither syrup nor wine. The people lay dead in their own filth. The Curse of Akkad, a Sumerian poem.
Jeez, what's with all that dust?
UsBot certainly likes having you around, and I hope we've piqued your curiosity enough that you'll want to learn more about the world around you. And what better place to do so than here at UsBot, if I do say so myself. Time to like and subscribe, my viewers. It costs nothing, but it helps the channel accomplish a lot. Check out our other videos too. We've covered a lot of ground this year, and though it started from humble beginnings, UsBot is growing and will continue to upgrade both its quality and style.